The new McCrispy Strip is here. Dip approved by ketchup, tangy barbecue, honey mustard, Sprite, McFlurry, Big Mac sauce, double dipped in buffalo and ranch, more ranch, and creamy chili McCrispy Strip Dip. Now at McDonald's. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Oh, such a clutch pickup, Dave.
I was worried we'd bring back the same team.
I meant those blackout motorized shades.
Blinds.com made it crazy affordable to replace our old blinds.
Hard to install?
No, it's easy. I installed these and then got some for my mom, too. She talked to a design consultant for free and scheduled a professional measure and install.
Hall of Fame son.
They're the #1 online retailer of custom window coverings in the world.
Blinds.com is the GOAT.
The GOAT!
Save up to 50% with minimum purchase at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions may apply.
It does sound like one just giant, stupid Hawkwind concept album, psychedelic trip, doesn't it?
Hello, and welcome to a new episode of Live Through That. I'm your host, Mike Hipple, and on this podcast, we'll dig a little deeper into a pivotal moment into the lives of some of my favorite artists from the 80s and 90s. We have keyboardist Iain Baker from the band Jesus Jones on the show this week. Jesus Jones were pretty huge back in the early 90s. Worldwide, they had a massive hit with Right Here, Right Now. I remember reading in the music magazines at the time that they were the, quote, sound of the future. I've re-listened to the band's albums recently, and man, they do hold up, and they do sound a little bit futuristic. Today, Iain tells us about a school trip when he was just a young boy when he stumbled across a piece of art that continues to influence him to this day.
It's definitely the moment that kind of creatively changed me, and I revisit it in my mind, not almost constantly, but all the time. It pops up, and it happened when I was 14 years old, and I was at school in Wiltshire in the west of England at the time, and in May of 1980, so yeah, I was 14 years old. Our art teachers organised a trip to school sort of at the end of the school year, and the idea was that we'd go and see a film right at the end of the night, because it was I think just after the release of Polanski's version of Tess of the D'Urbervilles, and also the bus would drop us like right at the top of Portobello Road and Notting Hill Gate at the start of the day, so we'd have a chance to dive into the whole kind of bohemian vibe of West London and see what was going on. And then they gave us a little map each, and it's like, this is how you get down through Kensington Palace Gardens, down towards the Albert Memorial, the Royal Albert Hall, and the Royal College of Art. And because it was organised by the art teachers, the whole idea was we'd go in there, we'd see the art students, we'd see their end of year kind of presentations, and we'd see their paintings and sculptures, and we'd get inspired, etc., etc. And so it's in this vast kind of space in the Royal College of Art, and what they'd done is they'd sort of separated it into various different rooms using black sort of wool drape to make rooms to hang paintings and artwork and various different things off. And so I walked around, and after a little while, I had this sort of strange thing where I found myself in between rooms in this strange dead space, because they'd segmented various areas off, but there was this little sort of space in the corner which didn't really fit. And in the middle of this space was where one student had set up his end of year art project. And it was, like I said, between rooms, and it became a space which it wasn't square, it wasn't oval, it wasn't round, it was just, there were right angles all over the place. It was like a series of, like a faceted sort of weird diamond, and completely black. The walls, the ceiling, it was all this black drape. And in the middle of this sort of dark space, a student had set up his artwork, which was a sort of central pillar, like a wooden pillar. And in the middle of this pillar, he'd set up two slide projectors on top of each other on Lazy Susans, rotating bevel things. And they're slide projectors, so they've got those circular feeded slide projector cartridges on the top, one on top of each other. And they're on motors, and the motors are spinning constantly, and these turntables are spinning constantly in the opposite direction. One goes one way, one goes the other way. And when you're in this dark room, as the slides engage and the light comes through, they would broadcast the slide onto the wall all the way around you, and it would circle around your head. And the slides were all the same. They were just shapes, colored shapes. So it'd be like a blue circle, a red square, a green triangle, whatever. Loads and each and every one of them was different. Each of them, every one of them was a slightly different color. And the artwork was just all of these shapes just zooming around your head like that. One this way, one the other way. But as they zoomed around, obviously they kept changing and they kept moving and they kept refracting. So what would happen is if you send this kind of triangle out, as it went through this strange, odd-shaped room, the triangle would morph into like loads and loads of different shapes, and it would be fluid as it moved round. And just the distance between the wall and the projector meant that its relative shape would change as well. And then, of course, it's a particular color. So as it went round, and if it like a red shape met a blue shape, then the shape in the middle, the shape that they then created, would be different, and it would be a different color as well, because the two colors would interact. So the shapes would interact with each other, the colors would interact with each other, everything would interact with all the shapes and the size of the room. And it was just a moment of profound creativity for me, because I was just like, I could stand here I was there for about an hour, and nothing was the same. Everything was totally different all the time. And I could have stood there for another hour, for another day, for another week, or another year, and I never would have seen the same thing happen again. It was like being stuck in this kind of never ending artwork. I think I was almost too young to realize what had happened to me, but I got out of there thinking that I could achieve things, that I could do things, that I'd been changed somehow. And here's where it gets kind of deep and intense. When I didn't realize the importance of what it had done and how it had changed me until about 10 years later, in about, I think, 1989. Yeah, when James Gleick's book on chaos theory came out, which is obviously, I'm not sure, I don't know how much anybody knows about chaos theory. They may know about fractals and about how things change. And once you dive into fractal patterns, more patterns emerge and emerge and emerge and refract infinitely. And that sort of pattern in chaos gives a sort of a sense of order in the chaos that seems to permeate all of us and around all of us. It's like you see a control panel for the universe somehow when you read chaos. Anyway, I read the book, and there's a section in there about the Menger sponge, which is a cube, and it's basically a mathematical theorem that's been worked out, on a piece of paper. So effectively, what you do is you get a cube, and you divide the surface of each, the wall of each of the faces, into 9 blocks, and the center of the 9 blocks you take out, and the same sized hole out of the middle of the 9 blocks, and then it leaves another 9 squares around it, and in the middle of those squares you take out the center of that square, and then you repeat the process, and you repeat the process, and you keep digging things out of this cube. You keep digging things out of this cube, and you can dig and dig and dig and dig and dig infinitely. And eventually what you have is something which has absolutely infinite volume, completely infinite volume, but it has a finite surface, completely finite. So you could hold the Menger sponge in your hand like that, and it would contain infinity. So you could hold it, you could hold infinity in the palm of your hand. And at that point, when I read the book, I just went back. It's like this bolt went through my head, and I realized the reason it had affected me so much is because when I was in that room, the room had showed me infinite possibilities within a finite space. The room is a finite space. The room represented possibility as a concept. But everything that was happening and refracting and changing was the concept of possibilities, plural, and everything there was refracting infinitely. And I think that that's what's had the biggest effect on me, because it taught me that, possibility is finite, and it's something which you can achieve and you can aim for and you can hold in your hand. But within possibility as a concept, then within that, possibilities themselves are absolutely endless. And the reason why I think it affected me and I got so much out of it is because you can apply that not just to creativity, but that's life. Life is something which has finite borders. You're born, you live, you die. That's finite. You can see those, you can hold those, you can measure those. But within the cube, everything else is absolutely infinite. And it meant that I just realized that there was all these people who would always say, they'd always search for the answers kind of out there. They would say, well, the answers to life, the universe, and everything must exist beyond the realms of our human comprehension. And I think that being in that room made me realize that I don't think there's any such thing as beyond human comprehension. There's human comprehension is actually, it's inside is where the answers are, not outside. Infinity is, but when people sort of try and when they countenance in a spiritual sense kind of infinity or the size of everything, they'll look to the stars. They always do it. They're like, well, it goes on and it blah blah blah, and they look out there for the answer. And I think what that room did is it taught me that there is no out there, there's only in here. And the possibilities of in here they absolutely dwarf the seeming vastness of what's out there. And I think that as human beings, that's, especially creatively, that's how to win that battle, because the battle is, oh, how do I cope with this insane creativity? Because it seems like there's so much to do and to learn. And it's like, well, why are you looking for the answers out there if the answers are in here? So yeah, I'm going to wrap that one up, because that's how so that's how deep it got. That's how kind of much it influenced me, and it continues to influence me because, well, as you hopefully, as I've explained, I don't know. It does sound like one just giant stupid Hawkwind concept album psychedelic trip, doesn't it? I was a 14-year-old kid, you know what I mean? I was as straight as they come at that point. But it has been a lifelong lesson in what life is all about, and it especially guides kind of creative matters for me, because the idea of understanding possibility and boundaries and things like that is just so powerful, and it's something which it continues to inspire me. But like I said, because it delves deeper, I think, into a more sort of spiritual understanding of creativity and possibility, I think it's something which actually has taken on an almost kind of mythic importance for me. It's something which guides me spiritually. And that sounds really daft, for like a 14-year-old kid on a trip to school, for a school trip up to London, to be stuck in a room, looking at this stuff and realizing all that. But like I said, I didn't kind of realize at the time. It's been a process of understanding. I think the concept of being hit over the head with that was just so big that I had no chance. I had no chance to understand it initially. And the thing, I've never found out who the guy was. It was almost like being in a, did it really happen? I don't know. But I don't even know if that was his intent. I don't even know if it was, but I don't think that's important. So, mate, I hope that wasn't too intense for you.
That wasn't too intense for me. I'm hoping you stuck with it. And if you're listening and happen to know who that artist might be, I'd love to hear from you. You can find a link to my website with my contact information in the show notes. Let's take a quick break here to hear from a friend of the pod.
Hi. Have you ever heard a classic song and thought to yourself, why on earth was this popular? What's a Sussudio or a Luff Balloon? What does it mean to Wang Chung or to Tub Thumb? Where did Cotton Eye Joe come from? Well, there's a podcast for that. You Wanted a Hit is a podcast about unlikely, perplexing, and positively bizarre hit songs. Each episode, we explore the backstory, creation, and success of one unlikely smash hit. We have a blast along the way with hilarious stories, interesting special guests, and often mind-blowing bits of music history. To join the fun, check out You Wanted a Hit wherever you get your podcasts.
After that, I was afraid the rest of my questions were going to seem pretty banal.
Well, like I said, I was hoping that I wasn't going to kind of fry too much mind there, you know what I mean? But at the same time, it's something that I do think about it. I think about it, every week. I reckon it bubbles up into my consciousness and just reminds me, look, this is what you do. This is what life is. This is how it goes, you know. So I feel that, when I read your email and you said, look, this is what it's about, I thought, well, people are going to be going, oh, what on earth's he on about? But by that very same thing, I have to get it out there because it has been the defining thing for me in terms of how I approach that creative side of my life.
I was surprised to find out that when Iain joined the band, they didn't know he had any musical talents at all, despite the fact that he had musical lessons in his youth and played piano and saxophone.
Yes, I did. Yeah, from the age of about maybe 8 or 9 up until about 13, 14, something like that. I played piano. I actually played saxophone as well for about 3, 4 years. I still play sax, and obviously I played piano for fun, I think, more than anything else. But yeah, nobody ever checked to see if I could do anything. Because I think the reason I was asked to join was never for musical reasons. It was, can you make the band wear some better clothes, and can you be a kind of vibes director? Can you inject some sort of anarchic vibes presence at the back of the stage? And I knew I could do that, and I think Mike knew that I could do that. But in terms of actual kind of musical stuff, that was honestly, it was never ever discussed ever.
Did that make him feel creatively frustrated in the band?
I don't know if I did, because I think that the whole thing about Jesus Jones is that the creativity just finds its way, and I think that's actually a a generalization. It's not just the band. Creativity is something which will find its way and its level. And there have been opportunities throughout the thing when I've suddenly had the opportunity to say, well, do you guys want me to play a bit more piano? Or, should I just, these days I can actually almost kind of do what I want with some of the music that I have, and the notes and the sounds that I have, the kind of palette of sounds when I'm playing on stage. So I get the freedom to sometimes go, I'll do this, I'll do that, and I end up sort of extemporizing, quite a lot, which is great, and I think that's good in a creative sense. The ability to just kind of put stuff here and there and everywhere.
Has he ever wanted to do a side project or solo album?
It's funny. I've tried musically. I've tried throughout the years, but just it isn't in me. Do you know what I mean? To produce music along those lines, and I think that's also been determined by. I'm kind of happy with that now. Previously I'd be like, oh, I'll get a little sampler maybe, and then maybe a little keyboard and a studio setup, see if I can knock something out, and it would always be fairly amateur sounding, which would leave me slightly frustrated. But eventually, once I started managing the band, I realized that music as a whole is this kind of it's a circle of a number of things which come together, but chiefly it's kind of, if I can explain it in ways that hopefully don't come across as vastly pretentious again, it's effectively a nexus between kind of art and dreams, and the great kind of musical endeavors are always built on this kind of a mixture of art, artistic ability and dreams, and making a totality in a circle. So I can explain that, for example, by saying that, you could have a rock band with a mercurially talented guitarist, somebody who's just, the notes just drip from his fingers and it's perfect. And then you have a singer who's kind of who's a contrary asshole of a guy who's just, you know what I mean? And who doesn't have any musical talent and doesn't seem able to kind of do that. But because he can embody attitude and the ideas of the songs, because he can project that then you get this kind of the dream and the talent goes ding, and creates that hole, and that's what makes it work. So when I started managing the band, I quickly realized that I wasn't actually, that artistic person at all. I was the dreamer. So when I started managing the band, it wasn't maybe they can record my songs. It became a question of like, well, actually, no, maybe we can live my dreams. Because I'm the one with the dreams of the band, and Mike is the one who has the songs of the band. He doesn't necessarily dream the dream, but I dream the dream. And so, but when you put those two things together, it's quite powerful. And I think that's why, since I started managing the band, that we've actually had a little bit of a resurgence, because it's enabled me to take what we do in a creative sense and apply my understanding of how to apply dreams to it and make those work. Because anybody that dreams understands other people that dream as well. And that it puts me in contact with, as it were, on the same sort of spiritual level. It puts you on the same thing of being able to understand the fans who love the music, because they want the dream as well, and I have the dream and I can help them with that, so that's what I do. And in a strange way, I suppose, if you're going to come back to creativity, there is there's a definite creative side to that, because you're applying that process of living out the dream in a creative way. You're marshalling those dreams along creative channels. It is like songwriting, I suppose, in a sense, because you are constructing a framework that allows those dreams to kind of progress. Whereas the songwriter is doing a similar thing, but just with a song. And I think when the two of those things come together, that's how it works, and that's what I tend to do now.
Huge thanks to Iain for putting himself out there and telling this story. And as always, a quick reminder that you can buy my book on 80s musicians and where they are today, 80s Redux, and its sequel, Live Through That, on 90s Artist, wherever you buy your books. And if you like this show, please leave a review where you're listening. It always helps others find us. And of course, subscribe so that you won't miss an episode. Thanks for listening.
This is the Music City San Francisco podcast. Welcome to our weekly show focused on the musical revolution in the San Francisco Bay Area.
Hi, so my name is Mitch. I'm in a band called Mitch Rocket. There definitely is a musical revolution going on in the Bay Area right now.
Each week we will bring you the latest in music news from around the city, around the Bay, and around the world. Metallica always bringing the fire, and this show in Mexico City for the M72 tour was no exception. We have our correspondents with their boots on the ground reporting on events all across the Bay Area.
Hello, this is Walter Atkins, award-winning photographer and a journalist for about 15 years now.
We will be joined in our studio by featured guests, where I'll be talking about all things music, including being a musician, songwriting, the process of recording, mixing, touring, gear, and everything in between. We have a very special guest sitting right next to me, and I'd like to say welcome to Music City, Shauna Hall.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
The podcast is recorded and produced at the recently opened epicenter for the music scene called Music City, San Francisco, located at the edge of the Tenderloin on the corner of Bush and Polk Street.
And Music City is lifting up and elevating the music scene in San Francisco.
It's a place where music lovers and musicians can come together.
I will be your host, Brad Nofel, and I will guide you through the scene and to the shows. The Music City San Francisco podcast, available every week from your favorite podcast distributors. Brought to you by Pantheon Media, Telling Visions Unlimited, and Music City San Francisco, home of the revolution.
This is the Music City San Francisco podcast. We've got our ear to the ground to bring you the sound.
Reaching out.